The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. Glory to you, O Lord. King Herod had heard about Jesus, since by now his name was well known. Some were saying John the Baptist has risen from the dead, and that is why miraculous powers are at work in him. Others said, he is Elijah. Others again, he is a prophet, like the prophets we used to have. But when Herod heard this, he said, it is John, whose head I cut off. He has risen from the dead. Now it was this same Herod who had sent to have John arrested and had him chained up in prison because of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, whom he had married. For John had told Herod, it is against the law for you to have your brother's wife. As for Herodias, she was furious with him and wanted to kill him. But she was not able to, because Herod was afraid of John, knowing him to be a good and holy man, and gave him his protection. When he had heard him speak, he was greatly perplexed, and yet he liked to listen to him. An opportunity came on Herod's birthday, when he gave a banquet for the nobles of his court, for his army officers, and for the leading figures in Galilee. When the daughter of this same Herodias came in and danced, she delighted Herod and his guests. So the king said to the girl, ask me anything you like, and I will give it to you. And he swore her an oath, I will give you anything you ask, even half of my kingdom. She went out and said to her mother, what shall I ask for? She replied, the head of John the Baptist. The girl hurried straight back to the king and made her request. I want you to give me John the Baptist's head, here and now on a dish. The king was deeply distressed, but thinking of the oaths he had sworn and of his guests, he was reluctant to break his word to her. So the king at once sent one of the bodyguard with orders to bring John's head. The man went off and beheaded him in prison. Then he brought the head on a dish and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. When John's disciples heard about this, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. The Gospel of the Lord. I was ordained on the birthday of St. John the Baptist, June the 24th, but there is a feast in August known as the beheading of John the Baptist, and this is the Gospel for that day. I knew a very mischievous fellow student when I was at university, graduate school, and he could not remember which of the feasts that I was ordained on. He didn't remember if it was June or August, but he wanted to honor me. So next thing I knew was this big box with a cake inside was delivered to my house. It was a chocolate cake dripping with heavy, thick chocolate. And the cake was shaped like a head. And the chocolate was all the hair, the thick hair. And there was a little sign on the cake that said, chocolate suicide. Well, those who like chocolates wouldn't think it's a suicide, would you? And yet, there's an element of the suicidal that comes through the first reading when we think, as the first reading to the Hebrews helps us to in the journey, when we think of how we probably begin to spiritually and suicidally bring death into our soul. In other words, when we end up doing the kind of things that spiritually can kill us, can take away our spiritual life. You two are in the one body. Marriage is to be honored by all. It doesn't say only by married persons, by all. And marriages are to be kept undefiled, because fornicators and adulterers will come under God's judgment. Put greed out of your lives and be content with whatever you have. God himself has said, I will not fail you or desert you. So you could say with confidence, with the Lord to help me, I fear nothing. So it's important for us to see marriage not only as the relationship between a married man and a married woman, or a man married to a woman, a husband and a wife. St. John Paul II, many years ago, when he was writing the letter to families, he was saying already that the human being is nuptial by nature, that we are relational. We give ourselves to each other. So we are, in fact, as the body of Christ, engaged in a marriage to the body of Christ, to the church members, to each other. If we could see that relationship with each other has a commitment to it, we might be less willing to err by gossip, by breaking down that relationship. If we could see that to do so is in fact fornicating or adultering. The marriage relationship from human being to church, to Christ, through the sacraments, with the help of the scriptures, in the Spirit, really can preserve us in a more chaste relationship. And you know, from this very pulpit, a few years ago, I asked you to be careful of the word chaste, because sometimes C-H-A-S-T-E has the same sound as C-H-A-S-E-D. So it's to move, the challenge is to be C-H-A-S-T-E, and to move away from not only chasing and fornicating others by our eyes, our movements at carnival, etc., but by pursuing what is wrong and what is erotic and what is against real love.